World Financial Group offers entrepreneurs from all backgrounds the opportunity to start their own business on a level playing field. Dr. Yana Woodhouse, receiving the WCM Wall Street Pioneer Award by the United Black Wall Street of America, Inc., is one of those entrepreneurs.
I see WFG and TFA as a place where African Americans with an entrepreneurial mindset can flourish. And the bonus, we help families and serve the communities across the country.
To learn more about us, go to worldfinancialgroup.com.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.
Happy Tuesday. It's Marie here with our Bold Show. Good evening, everyone. It is always such a pleasure to be in this space for us to share our uplifting stories, to inspire and motivate others. I am also here to remind you that it is really okay to not be okay. It's okay to have the jitters. It's okay to feel fear. Fear is important. Without fear, it's very difficult for you to decide what your next steps will be. Fear is actually a motivating factor in your life, just in case you don't know about that. And, yesterday we celebrated Dr. Martin Luther King's holiday, and one of his favorite quotes for me is actually, faith is taking the first step, even when you can't see the whole staircase. And this, it's no with an inspirational, phenomenal Black sister. She is doing the do. And today's show also, it's about transformation. It's a story of transformation, new version of yourselves. After you're finished watching the show today, like all my other Bold shows, I hope that you find something that resonates with you, something that inspires you, something that speaks to you and gives you some sort of motivation to move, because we all go through challenges. It's a necessary part of who we are. It just all depends on how we determine to bounce back after a given situation or anything that occurs in our lives that gives us a setback. So like I said, I want to take this time to introduce our lovely guest. Like for me, I don't like to share much about my guest. I like to give them that opportunity to do that for themselves. But without further ado, I'd like to welcome in this space this evening the wonderful Miss Latavia Lee. She is a licensed mental health social worker. She is also director for learning, practice, and proficiency with a child welfare organization. And she's also Coach Tay, and you will learn more about her evening. So without further ado, thank you so much for saying yes.
Oh, goodness. Done what you got me up here doing. Good evening, everyone. I am so honored and blessed to be here in this sacred space with you all this evening. Dunn talked about fear and being nervous. Hi, I am she. I am nervous. And then I'm glad you mentioned, Dunn, about faith, right? And so while I am nervous, I'm looking up at my vision board and it says faith over fear. And so I am going to be moving myself forward, although I'm sitting in a moment of uncertainty, in a moment of vulnerability, in a moment of I'm so far outside of my comfort zone. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm moving forward in faith, understanding and knowing that God has brought me to this place to hopefully have an impact on the lives of others. And so, again, I'm honored to be in this space with you and all the guests that are tuning in live or going to watch the replay. So thank you for having me.
So we're going to take a moment and we're
Mhm.
just going to sit in silence.
Okay.
And we're going to center ourselves and prepare for this inspirational evening. Center yourself into your happiest place, wherever that is. When you're ready, you could open up your eyes. Awesome. And one last thing before we get on our journey, we're going to invite God into this space.
Listen, my centering included a prayer. I don't know if y'all saw my lips moving, but that was me saying my little final prayer. But I'm glad that you're inviting God into the space. So let's do it.
Okay, awesome. So now that we have done all of that, I'm going to ask you to just tell the viewers, tell us who you are.
Who am I? We are all a work in progress. So who I am is continuing to evolve, right? As Dunn introduced, my name is Latavia Lee. In this new journey that I'm going on, I am being referred to as Coach Tay, right? So I am a lover of God, a believer, and that's going to be at the foundation of all that I do in my interactions just every day with people, how I walk throughout the world, and then ultimately, right, how I choose to run my business, right? And so my faith is at the foundation and at the core of who I am as a person and as an entrepreneur. Who I am today is also a woman that has gone through some things, right, as it relates to my own health and wellness journey. And I am in a space where I want to have an impact and share my journey with others so that they're hopefully inspired to do the work that's necessary for themselves to change and whatever change looks like for them.
Love it, love it. And just one thing that I would change with what you just said just now,
Mm-hmm.
you're already making an impact. In case you don't realize that, you're already making an impact. And I think being in this space right now, you will be impacting someone else like you always do. So let's just lean into that.
I definitely think you're right, Dunn. It's something that I have to certainly lean into more because, in this journey of entrepreneurship, in this journey of figuring out who I am in this phase of my life, right? I'm used to being in the background. I'm used to supporting and pushing and cheering for the dreams of others. And so stepping into this place is a little different for me, although I train and I talk in front of people all the time, but to like be leading the work, a work that I'm leading that's my own is something different, right? And then also just having an understanding or being able to see and understand that I have an impact in the seven mountains, right, in the world, at work, professionally, within families, within the professional arena, but then also understanding that I have a kingdom work to do also, right, and that I have a capacity to hopefully impact people on a deeper level as it relates to their own health, wellness, spirituality, etc. So that is certainly something that I'm trying to lean in more into, but it's a work in progress. So I appreciate that reframing because it is certainly necessary at times for sure.
And that's the beauty of it, right? We're all a work in progress, but I think it's naming it, right? And leaning into it and accepting who we are. And the bold show, like I said, it's brilliantly overcoming life's disappointments. We all go through challenges in our life every single day. No one is exempted from that. And there is so much power in our stories. if we just own it. There is so much power in our scars. There is so much power in what we think makes us so imperfect. Our imperfections are our perfections, but we gotta first acknowledge it and own it. So you alluded to your own health journey.
Mhm.
I want you to take us back and then get us here.
Take us.
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah.
No pressure,
Absolutely.
as it's about showing people how you
Mhm.
got here today.
Absolutely. So when it comes to my own health and wellness journey, I often say that I feel like I've been on this journey my whole life, right? Um, Ever since I was a little girl, um, I could remember there's a picture that I think we might be able to pull up of me in my leotard during Christmas time. And I had to be like 3 or 4 years old. And here I am ready to work out in the living room of my home. And so, when I say that I've been on this journey my whole life, that's exactly what it feels like, because obviously that's what it was, right? My whole Lucille workout, leg warmers and all, right?
Head banging in
Bengals,
the yards.
everything. I was all coordinated even then, okay? I'm fly now, but sister was fly even then, right? And so just being on this journey of health and wellness since I was a toddler, right? And so, I think as I continued to grow and I got older, right? I had a love hate relationship with health and wellness. I think that when I got into my teenage years, right? Definitely what the doctors would consider, obese, right? Um, and I was sharing with someone that it's only been maybe the last few years as a whole adult that I actually started going to the doctors by myself, right? Because going to the doctor was such a traumatic experience for me, right? Because although I was, yes, obese by their standards, right? Um, I was still very active. I didn't have any major health issues. And so it would just always be such an emotional experience going to the doctors, right? And I felt like a trauma every time I went, because I knew they were going to tell me that I'm fat. I knew they were going to tell me I need to lose weight. I knew they were going to tell me all the things that they told me every appointment. So that was certainly a traumatic part of, just my upbringing and being on this health and wellness journey. And I say that to say, connected to that, um, really want to empower us all to find doctors who are affirming, right? That are listen to us, that will really see. Certainly, we're not denying the impact of weight and what it can have on our health, but weight is not the only factor, right? You can be overweight and still have great numbers as it relates to, your A1C and your blood pressure, etc. So we're not denying that there is a correlation, but just try to find providers that are willing to listen to you. So anyway, back to growing up as a teenager. Of course, my mom taking me to the doctors. She's hearing, their concern for my health. And so as a parent, right, she's concerned. My parents are concerned. So, in my teenage years, 14, 15, 16, I can remember my mother getting us a membership to the Ballys Gym, and me fighting tooth and nail to go to the gym with her, because of our upbringing. And again, I started this saying that God is the foundation. We grew up with an affiliation where, women don't wear pants, right? And so my mom had us in the gym in our skirts, and I used to be so embarrassed. When you tell me embarrassed, I'm in the gym. I don't want to be there. I'm in there in my skirt. And then also I'm there very upset because 14, 15, 16-year-old me didn't understand that my parents was doing this, that my mom was doing this from a place of love, right? At 13, 14, 15, and 16, I interpreted it as they don't love me the way I am, right? And so that certainly put a strain on the relationship that I had with my mother at that time. Because again, I feel like you're trying to change me because you don't love me the way I am, right? Now, almost 40-year-old Tay knows that it was coming from a place of love, right? It was coming from a place of concern, but teenager Tay did not realize that, right? And so, sometimes my mother jokes and laughs now about, sometimes Saturday mornings while I'm on my way home from the gym, she like, you went to the gym already? And would kind of laugh about how I used to fight her for going to the gym. And now I'm always, I'm always at the gym now. And so, again, just throughout my teenage years doing that. And then, getting into, um, as a young adult, starting my career as a social worker, still very much plus size, right? But at this point, right, I talked about earlier how, um, you know, being plus size, being overweight, but not having the health issues related to it, right? But then it did come a point, right, in my 20s where, I was experiencing high blood pressure, right? And I was experiencing being pre-diabetic in my early to mid 30s. And so I think that that is where the shift really happened for me, right? So when you talk about like why you here now, right? Although I've been on the journey my whole life, like seriously on the journey wasn't until um, I began to see the impact on my health, right? And so that's when I had to take it a little bit more seriously, and really do what needed to be done because I don't do sick well. I feel like I would not be a cheerful, you know, bubbly sick person. I don't like taking medication. And so, when I began to experience some of the side effects of being overweight, that's when my focus changed, more to like really hone into what I was doing in order to um, reverse those diagnoses that were coming up.
Thank you so much for sharing and being so open and candid with us. We appreciate that. You said something that is so profound, right? And in today's day and age where obesity is such a big issue, um, what would you say to a parent who may also have a child that's struggling with their weight? How would you suggest a child so it comes from a place of healing, so that
Mhm.
child can actually hear what that parent is saying?
Yeah. Um, so I think one of the critical things is like, oftentimes as individuals, not just as parents, right? But oftentimes as individuals, we are reactive, right? Instead of being proactive. So I think anytime a family can create healthy habits together, where it doesn't appear that a single child is being singled out because of their weight, I think that certainly helps with, just that child's impression that, okay, we're doing this as a family. All of us are going to the gym together, right? All of us are doing activities that are recreational in nature, but doesn't necessarily feel like exercise, right? As a teenager, 13, 14, and 15, going to the gym, that is exercise, right? Maybe if I was doing swimming or just being more involved in sports activities that wasn't like going to the gym because the doctor told me I was fat, would have helped me to receive that guidance from a different place, right? So I think being proactive, and just creating healthy habits early on is going to be, critical. I think the other component is the food, right? Because even as adults, you can exercise and be in the gym every day, but if we don't mind our fork, it doesn't matter what the work is that we're doing in the gym, right? And so I think creating healthy eating habits as well, again, things that are happening with the whole family and not just that singled out child. I think that for me, I believe that that would have helped with how I received, right, what was being authored, right? Because I did very much so feel like singled out as, the fat kid. Right?
So again, if I hear you correctly, it's not what we say, but it's how we say it. That's important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think certainly too, I'm always going to give credit where credit is due. And I can, again, as an adult, see the motivation, the intent behind it as an adult. But we have to understand sometimes, as teenagers, we're in our own world, we have our own thoughts.
Yeah.
And so parents can be doing the best that they know how to do, and it can still not be enough, right? So I think the other piece to that is, and I don't recall having a conversation like this, but really taking the time to talk, right, to your team, right, and say, what is it that you would like to do, right? Like, how are you feeling about the situation? Right? Do you want to go to the gym or do you want to walk the track, right? Can we do at home exercises? Like really giving options
Options.
to teenagers and including them as a part of the process, I think will be helpful also in just how um, the information is or the guidance is received from a teenager.
Yeah. It's about uplifting and motivating that child or that teenager to
Mhm.
feel empowered to be a part of the process than being told what she or he should do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think, again, finding those activities that really speak to them. Please, all throughout high school, I was on the step team, right? So I was getting plenty of physical, activity in being on we didn't call it a cheerleading team, but we was the step squad, right? So I did that. And so, I used to watch and or just be amazed. And even now as an adult, when you come across different memes and you see the people dancing or cheering, and I see that one little plus size girl giving it up, I'd be like, oh yes, get it. Because listen, because I was that girl, right? Like people used to always say, oh, I didn't know you could move like that. Yeah, don't sleep on me, okay? Don't sleep on me. Right. So just, really finding those fun ways to get moving. And then again, that the nutritional piece is always going to be the missing link or the most important link. And so I think, again, no matter how much we go to the gym, if we're not eating right, and if I can redo it, I'm like, Lord, why didn't I just like get my life together as a teen, right? Because then maybe I would not have to have endured, right, all of what I've endured as an adult. But the reality is that everything happens for a reason, and all of that, right, impacts how I show up, right? It impacts the story that I get to tell now, right? And so I guess that was needed for this, no matter how um, challenging it was, no matter how difficult it was, it plays a role in how I show up today. So I'm grateful.
Absolutely. And you said it perfect because I think like we are not our past, right? And we get a chance to do a do over, right? But we have to be conscious and acknowledge what is going on with us in order for us to move forward. And like I said, you know, you had to go through what you did because then I'm having this conversation with you. So I think I'm really curious, right? Because you talked so much about it's almost like that balance. But do you think one can achieve a balance between work, life, and health? What are your thoughts surrounding that?
So I came across, forgive me, I don't know who the exact author is of this quote. I'm lying. I feel like it's the senator, or no, the governor out of Georgia, mayor out of Georgia. But pretty recently, I came across a quote that basically she was like debunking the myth of like work-life balance. Because when you think about balance, you're assuming that everything has equal weight.
Mhm.
And the reality is as we are going through life, right, depending on all of the things that's happening, everything does not have equal weight at the same time, right? And so that idea of work life health balance is faulty, right? Because if I am going through a major medical crisis, right? My focus, right, is going to be navigating and managing that major health crisis, right? Where the other pieces may fall by the wayside or get a little less attention because of the health situation that is at the forefront, right? So even like myself, um, getting ready to turn 40. My mom has a history of being a survivor of breast cancer, right? So although I wasn't to the age this summer, I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start getting tested. Little did I know that it will end up being right like just the summer of tests and biopsies. And I ended up having 6 biopsies right over the summer between July and September. It felt like I was at the doctor every week, right? So when you talk about balance and you're facing a major health issue like that, and you're going to the doctor every week and waiting on results and everything else, that does not have equal weight as going to the gym, right? It's like something is going to take precedence over the other. And so I think if we approach what we're trying to create as understanding that things do have different weights, and really just kind of trying to figure out for today, right? For this season, for this week, for this month, what takes the most important precedence at this moment, right? And so how am I then giving my emotional, my physical, my spiritual attunity, right? How am I being attuned, excuse me, to what is most important in this moment, right? And not saying that those other things just fall off completely, but we can't give equal attention to everything at the same time, right? I think that kind of also speaks to that saying, jack of all trades, master of none. When we try to do so much at once, sometimes nothing ends up getting done because we just are all over the place, right? So I think having an awareness of that and creating priorities given what's going on in your life at any given moment helps to give that illusion of not even just balance, but that you're feeling like you're focusing on what's most important in any given moment.
Something about Coach Tay that keeps you motivated and keeps you pushing every single day.
My faith
What
in
excites
God.
you? What excites you?
Well, I mean, what keeps me grounded is my faith in God. What excites me is I think in every aspect of my work, in every aspect of like who I am as a person, I am I enjoy serving others,
Mm.
right? I enjoy helping others grow and change, right? I enjoy um, helping people see a perspective maybe that they didn't see before, right? And helping them to see and grow within themselves. So that is something that I'm certainly passionate about, that I seek to do every single day, right? Whether it's in small ways or in big ways. Certainly helping people to grow and change is something that is at the core of who I am as an individual.
Awesome. I think this is the perfect. It's a perfect time for another transformation, right? Because we've been talking about this journey, and we've been talking about how much you have decided to invest in you, right? But before we get into that as well, I think I am a little curious to know, in terms of your self esteem, your self worth, and who you were as a teenager, what did that look like for you and feel like for you?
I think, as a teen, I feel like my mom, my family, um, they tried to do a lot to make sure that I felt included and that I felt um, beautiful or like that I wasn't missing out on anything. My mom is actually a seamstress, right? So when it came down to, if I'm on the step team and they're getting a uniform, if the uniform didn't come in my size, I didn't have to worry because Brenda Lee was going to make sure, right, that my situation was situated, right? If that meant her staying up all night long or what have you, making my outfit, that's what she did, right? And so I think that that is where, my pride in how I look comes from. As a teen, it would annoy me, right? Because her sewing room was like right next to my bedroom. Like I open up the window and can hear her sewing. And so, or just waking up because my mother is last minute. She is last minute with everything, right? And so, I would be up at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up, because the event is the next day and she's now making my stuff, right? But that certainly like instilled this sense of caring for what I look like. And I always say to people, and I still feel that to this day, is like, choose a struggle. Choose a struggle. I can't be big and look in a hot mess, right? So I'm
I
just
love that.
I'm just saying I'm not gonna be big and look in a mess, right? So I'm gonna always take pride in my physical appearance and making sure that I look put together, whether I'm going to the gym, I'm going to church, I'm going to work, right? I have a girlfriend, we always talk about diva style and full effect, right? I'm gonna look good. Even if I don't feel good, I'm gonna look good. And so I think that's definitely something that I take pride in, and that's rooted from how I grew up and what my mother tried to instill and import in me. Although she had to make them herself at times, right? So I think that that is one piece. But I think also when you talk about esteem, um, the issue of relationships and stuff like that comes up. And certainly, as a teenager being the big girl, right? I had a whole lot of male friends, right? Everybody, Coach Tay was cool Tay, right? Like I was in with the in crowd, but everybody saw me as that friend, as that sister, right? And not necessarily somebody that they could see themselves in a relationship with,
Interest.
right? So certainly, that has an impact on one's esteem or on my esteem growing up for sure.
Okay. I think it's important for me to underscore something that you said about showing up in spaces and owning those spaces
Mhm.
and really picking your battle. And I think that is so important because it's a struggle. It's real for women, plus size women. They go through so much. It's like that shame, right? Being ridiculed, being ostracized, feeling lonely. It's so much emotions that goes with it. So tonight, for anyone who is listening and for folks who will view this later, just remember, just own who you are.
Mhm.
And don't allow your physical appearance to dictate how you show up in spaces.
Mhm.
Because for folks who know Coach Tay, I'm telling you, when she stepped into a room, she demands your attention. And that's that confidence. So kudos to you and thank you so much for being such a light. But I think it's like important for us to have that photo, that transformational photo. We really want to see a picture now. And then dive into the now, can we see a picture of her grown up?
Transformation. Okay, so
Her.
here we are. We're going through showing some of the transformation photos of being on this journey of health and wellness. We have a few that I believe we're gonna scroll through, but again, as you can see, it didn't matter what size I was. And I'm gonna be put together. I'm gonna have my hair done. I'm gonna have my nice little dress on. Um, always in the gym, right? Certainly, um, just taking pride again in what I look like, no matter what size I am. On the right, you couldn't tell me now. I was in Jamaica for one of my friend's birthday. I think we was away. We was in Jamaica having a nice time. And this is, a few years later, I was celebrating my birthday. But again, just to kind of, I think, when we're on this journey of health and wellness, taking pictures, is certainly something that um, has been helpful to me on the journey, because that scale is the devil. Okay. And so it doesn't always tell the whole story of what's going on in your transformation. So those pictures and taking those measurements, right, are going to certainly be, it helps to keep you motivated when the scale is being fickle, right? So, again, I just like to take a look back at these and just kind of remind myself of how far I have come, right? And I think these pictures also show that this journey isn't linear, right? There's so many times that I wish it was, right? But there's going to be hills and there's going to be valleys. You're going to go up and you're going to go down, right? And it's all a part of the process, right? And I think that is something that even in this moment, I'm trying to navigate, right? Because even in this moment, as Coach Tay, right, being a certified personal trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine, even in this moment right now, I am not the smallest that I have been, right? I have been smaller than I am right now. And so I think that, in talking about confidence and talking about qualifications and understanding that it is a journey for myself, right? Having to like understand and replay in my mind, yes, you are qualified to do this, right? Even in this moment, because of the journey that I've gone on myself, right? And again, just kind of being vulnerable to kind of highlight that change is not straight, right? It's going to be up and down. You're going to go around the corner, right? When I was going through what I was going through this summer, the gym wasn't on my mind. I'm an emotional eater, right? Like my focus was just like getting through all of these appointments, right? And so that caused an uptick, right? And so now I'm trying to get my life back together and come on back down. But again, it does not, because I'm not the smallest that I've ever been, does not undermine my expertise. It doesn't undermine my experience. It doesn't disqualify me, right, from sharing my journey and hopefully inspiring and helping other people to change, right? There's a scripture that talks about how God will use the foolish things to confound the wise, right? The things that to nobody else doesn't make sense, right? If you saw me walking down the street, you would not think, oh, she's a personal trainer. That wouldn't be the first thought that popped into your mind, right? And so I'm trusting God to use the foolish thing to confound the wise and to just help me find my niche of people, right, that feel connected to my story, that I will be able to have an impact on.
Okay. You will have an impact. You will continue to have an impact. Yes. Put it out into the universe. I think it's the perfect time for us to talk business, right? So you have this experience, this personal experience. What triggered you in this profit? Your passion turning into profit. Talk to me about that.
You said my passion turning into profit?
Yes.
Well, that's good. Passion to profit. Come on, Don. I'm writing that one down.
Go right ahead.
Passion to profit. Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, I can't take the credit. Because again, if you left it to me, this is not something that I would just naturally do. During the pandemic, everybody's being, we were locked down, and at the beginning of 2021, everything still very much virtual. People are using the virtual space to do everything, right? To exercise, to have meetings, etc. And then, I'm scrolling through my own social media feed and, see other people sharing their story, right? And being inspired by that. But then also in my everyday life, people sharing that they're inspired by the progress that I've been able to make and all of that. I did a vision board in January of 2021 because God had given me, He dropped the name of the business in my spirit, and it's Heal Thy Temple Fitness and Wellness Coaching. And so that was dropped into my spirit divinely by God. And so at that juncture, I was like, okay, what do I need to do to make this idea a reality? And so it went up on my vision board. I signed up to take classes through the National Academy of Sports Medicine um, in order to become a certified personal trainer. And so it was on the vision board in 2021, and I am happy to say that in July of 2022, right, July of last year, I was able to take the test, and pass my certification. So I am officially a personalized trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And what I'm currently working on is I want to have specializations in weight loss as well as nutrition. And so those are two certifications that I'm working on now as a supplement to being a personal trainer. And um, I achieved my certification in July, and then in November, I actually started working with my first paying client. So I'm excited about that. I actually was at the gym right before our session today, working with this client and a friend of hers. And even that is, God's hand is in everything, because in my own journey, right? As I was going through the courses to become a certified personal trainer, I decided to begin working with a personalized trainer, right? And so my goal of working with this trainer was to I wanted to be able to compare what I'm learning, right? The book knowledge that I'm gaining from the course and what it actually looks like working with a client, right? And so I got myself my own personal trainer to kind of help me through that process. I didn't share though initially that I was going through this process myself to become a personalized trainer. So I feel like he often felt like I was being what's the word that I'm looking for? I don't want to say combative, but I often feel like he felt that I was like questioning his authority or just being resistant to what he was having me do. And it wasn't that I was trying to be resistant. I was trying to make that connection between the book knowledge, right, and what it looks like actually working with the client. I would ask a lot of questions, and I think he would be annoyed with that a little bit.
That's okay. Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. I mean, I eventually shared with him, like, listen, I'm trying to become a personal trainer. And so this is why I'm doing X, Y, Z. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm not trying to question your knowledge, but I am trying to help connect the dots for myself. And so when we ended that personal training client relationship, it wasn't on the best of terms. I'm not going to lie. It was not on the best of terms. But, maybe around October. So I maybe stopped working with him in like April of last year, right? And so then I'm still studying. I take my test in July, and then I see him at the gym in October. And between April and October, he opened up a boutique gym. I was working with him at Planet Fitness. So he owns his own gym. And so I saw him and he came up to talk to me and we were chatting. And he was like, oh, did you finish your certification? And I was like, sure did. I showed him my certificate or whatever. And he offered me the opportunity to work in his gym. And so um, the neighborhood that the gym is in, it is a high Jewish population, and the women are not allowed to work with male trainers, and so he's looking for female trainers to come in to work with the women in the community. And so God has such a huge sense of humor that my first paying client, is a 16-year-old who comes to the gym in her skirt.
What is
you
that
believe
humor?
it?
Are you serious?
Can you believe it? She comes to the gym in her skirt, 16-year-old. And so,
Wow.
again, everything happens for a reason. You see how,
Mhm.
there ends up being alignment,
16-year-old.
and nothing is lost, right? And I think that that's what we have to remember
Mhm.
in our experiences, right? Even if we can't see it in the moment, nothing is wasted, right? Everything is for a reason. At Graham, we have, our CEO always tells us to trust the process, right? There is always something that is to be learned, something that we can take from what we're going through. And so just to kind of see it come full circle is always like, I have to laugh. And I actually mentioned it at my event. I hosted my first event as an entrepreneur over the weekend. And just, that was a nice little laugh because I hadn't even mentioned it to my mom yet that my first client was, a 16-year-old girl
In
who comes
in
to
the skirts.
in her skirt, right?
What a sense of
So,
humor,
yeah,
God.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Exactly.
I love to talk to my mom, and I tell my mom that God, he's so mischievous, he's mysterious, and he's hilarious. And I always say to folks, you don't have to understand the journey, just be obedient to the journey. Don't have to understand it, because sometimes we focus on trying to comprehend what's happening, and that actually distracts us from what it is that we are meant to do. Um, what would you say is one of your biggest lessons that you've learned throughout this whole process of finding yourself?
Um, I think it's a lesson that I'm now learning because I'm now in a seat or in this space where I need help, right? Like, so just being vulnerable enough to say, I don't have all the answers, I don't know everything, um, and being willing to allow others to help me, um, because there are people I certainly recognize that there are a lot of people, and even as we were talking about, as we were prepping, how a lot of people don't have support. Everybody's not going to always understand your journey, and that is right. But then there are times when you do have that support. You do have people who come into your life to um, help move you forward in the things that you are trying to accomplish. And so I think being for myself, being open to that and accepting of that willingly is something that I'm learning every day, right? Because when you're a giver, you're used to giving, and it's oftentimes hard for you to receive. And so I think the lesson that I'm learning now is to receive, right? Um, what people are offering me, right? When it's helping to move the vision that God gave me forward. Because accepting help can be hard at times. And so I think that that is certainly something that I want to be more gracious at, right? Because in our own desire to do it on our own, or our ego and thinking that we have it, we end up potentially pushing people away who are willing to help us because we just feel like, oh, you just want to figure it out on your own, right? And sometimes we don't have to figure out everything on our own, right? And so just being in this space to kind of accept that help is where I currently am right now.
Can you say that again?
I don't know. I can't,
Just
the
willingness.
the
That
willing.
willingness, the willingness. That's the part, that
Yeah,
part right there. Um,
absolutely.
And I think it's also it's cultural, and Black women, unfortunately, we were taught that we have to be strong and we just have to keep moving. Like we don't stop to lean into the pain and be willing to accept help. Because I know that's something like growing up, my mom instilled in me, you got to be independent. You just got to be okay. It doesn't matter. Just keep moving. Or she would tell you, go pray about it and it will be okay. We don't really have conversations, right? And it's not that my mom didn't love me. She does, but that's just how she was raised, right? And again, it goes back to parenting, and it goes back to as the importance of us finding who we are as an individual, exclusive of what our parents and culture may have taught us. I think I have a burning question for you. Typically, how long do you spend with a client? And each client, do you have like an individualized program that you have for each client? What does that look like?
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to get to that in a second, but I do want to add to what you mentioned around something that you said triggered me to think about faith. So you talked about faith and to pray about it. Um, but the word also says that faith without works is dead, right? So we have to do something. We have to partner with our faith and do something in order to help us see change. And so that's what you're doing when you choose yourself, right? When you choose to get up and exercise, when you choose to have that grilled chicken instead of the fried chicken, right? When you choose to, sip on your water with lemon instead of juice, right? Your every decision is operating and working the faith in order to get to where you want to go, right? Whether that is a number on a scale, whether that is, you're on medication now and you want to get off the medication, everything that we do each day is either going to help get us closer to what we're trying to accomplish or it's going to push us back from what we're trying to accomplish. So I think that that is certainly something that we want to keep in mind as we are. There's nothing wrong with faith. I believe in it, right? It grounds me, but we also have to do something. And so in the doing, right, when you were talking about like what um, uh, whether individualized plans get developed, absolutely, right? So based on what a client seeks to change, right, what their goals are, we certainly want to create a plan based on their individual goals, right? One of the first things that we do is we do an overall assessment, right? Because oftentimes, in this area of health and fitness and wellness, sometimes we want to get to the doing and
Without
we may not be doing, we're doing something, but we may not be doing it right. And so we do a series of assessments just to check, how we are functioning, our alignment, right? Different postural assessments so that we know, okay, we might need to strengthen the hamstrings, right? Because you need your hamstrings to even get up and down out of a chair, right? So I think oftentimes when we think about our health and wellness journey, right, and in this society that we live in, also everything is about how one looks, right?
is
But how do we improve our quality of life, right?
Mhm.
Even for me, if I think back on my journey, done. The first time I was able to get on an airplane and did not need a seatbelt extension, you talk about the crocodile tears I cried. You would have thought somebody died, right? The tears that I cried when I got on that plane, asked for the seatbelt extender, but didn't need it, right? Like, so how are we improving our quality of life and not only what we see in the mirror, right? What we see in the mirror is important. I'm not saying it's not, but the goal is to help change the quality of life, right? Becoming less fatigued, right? So I'm going to help you to develop the goals that you want to work on, right? Do you want more stamina? You want to gain more strength, right? You want to be able to walk, 5 miles without feeling fatigued, right? So really, it's about co-partnering. We're partnering with the client to understand what they want to achieve, and then helping to create with them a plan that's going to get them there, right? Because even in if you have two clients that both want to work on their stamina, how they accomplish that is going to be different, right? Based on their own skills, what they're willing to try. I can put a whole routine together, but if you are not into it, you're not going to do it, right? So again, we have to be partnering. So definitely individualized plans get created based on goals that they would like to accomplish.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Um, what are some words of inspiration that you would like to leave the viewers today? Before we get to that, can you tell folks where they could actually connect with you if someone has an interest?
All right. So, my business is definitely in its infancy stages.
Mhm.
And so, if you are interested in learning more about what I have to offer, you can certainly email info at Healthy Temple Fitness Wellness Coaching.co. I know it's a long one. Matt, drop it in the chat. Put it on the bottom or something. Info at Healthy Temple Fitness Wellness Coaching.co. I'm going to be working on condensing that a little bit to make it a little bit easier for folks to find and to type. But that's the email address for now. On Instagram, my Instagram is loving Lovin, loving Miss Lee. Let me just make sure I got that right. I should have it right, but again, y'all bear with me. I'm new at this, not true at this. I'm gonna be true at it soon. But I'm new at this. So my Instagram is loving on Miss Lee. So LOVINONMS.LEE. Loving on Miss Lee, right? And so again, this journey is about myself, right? It's about loving on who I am, who God created me to be, and making sure that I'm around long enough to have that impact on others as I desire, right? So that is my Instagram, and again, the email is info at Healthy Temple Fitness Wellness Coaching.co, not com, co. So that's where you all can reach me at in order to find out more information. We'll be working on getting a website and things like that together. But again, it's in its infancy stages. And so I guess when you talk about, where, yes, there you go. There you go. Right across the bottom. Thank you, Matt. Um, it's like start scared. Start now, right? Like you may not have all the pieces together. Do what you can. If you have a vision for what you want out of your life, right? Take the first step, right? Do something different. And I certainly know from my own experience, from the experience of doing my first event this last Saturday. If if what you're doing is aligned with the purpose that you have, right, that God gave you, it's gonna come to pass. Everything that you need will come together. And so I definitely want to encourage everybody to start where you are, make small changes every single day in order to see change, right? Oftentimes we put too much on our plate. We want to change so much at one time, it can often be stifling and causes us not to move forward. So choose that one thing, right? Maybe this week you want to focus on your water intake, right? So make that your focus for this week, right? Maybe you want to get a little bit more movement in, right? So really choose doable things and make progress small, step by step, little by little, so that you get started. Once you begin to see those successes, you're gonna crave wanting more success, right? And so it's gonna help keep you motivated to continue those positive behavior changes that you set out on.
Awesome. Perfect. And your final question as we wrap this up, and I want you to complete this. Finish this question for me. Coach Tay is fill in the blanks. Could be one word, could be two words.
Coach Tay is here to serve you.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Again, it was such a pleasure to have space, being so vulnerable, being so open, being so candid, and sharing your powerful story and sharing with us how you turn your passion into profit and allow God to lead you. You've been so obedient. And for our loyal viewers and folks who will watch later, just remember, like Coach Tate said, don't wait until you have it all to start. The moment is now. This moment, take it one day at a time, celebrate the small wins, and trust the process. You don't have to understand it, just be obedient. It was indeed a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing and watching your growth. Just be awesome. Good night, everyone. Have an amazing week on purpose.
Thank you. Good night.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.